Go ahead.
It's
been a while. Hi.
Yes, hello.
Where have you been?
Just preparing for this moment.
I think I'm going to disappoint you really badly if you've been preparing all this time for this moment. It's not going to be that exciting, I'm pretty sure.
Let's see. Karine, why do you think it is that more and more people polled feel like over time, President Biden is getting less and less mentally sharp?
Which poll is this?
ABC has President Biden's rating for health since May down 5 points, and for mental sharpness down 4 points.
You know, I have to say that's a little confusing for me, because if you look at what this president has done the last 3 years, historical pieces of legislation, right? When it comes to bipartisan infrastructure deal, many presidents before, like your favorite president, had said that...
Who's my favorite president?
Why don't we let the American people guess? But had said, no, let me finish. You asked me a question.
I don't understand what
No. Let me finish. And you'll guess who I'm talking about. Who used to say, Infrastructure Week, which was a punchline, became a joke. And now we are seeing infrastructure decade because of this president. There's the CHIPS and Science Act, right? There is the Inflation Reduction Act. These are legislation that is going to have a difference for generations to come, right? And so this is something that this president has done. That's pretty sharp for this president to have been able to do that. Let's look at the economy. The economy now, unemployment is under 4%, 14 million jobs created. The economy is in a better place than when it was when he walked in. That's just a fact, that's just the data. And we're seeing consumer sentiment is going up. And we saw just in December, how people spent more, and we hadn't seen that in some time. So I think you needed a president like President Biden to get that type of stuff done. Someone who's had Senate experience, someone who was the VP, vice president under President Obama, obviously, and someone who has been a pretty effective president over the last 3 years.
Okay, following up on immigration, authorities in Fairfax County, Virginia, ignored an ICE detainer. They released an illegal immigrant from Honduras who was charged with sexually assaulting a Virginia minor and production of sexual abuse material. Doesn't that go to show that as record numbers of people appear at the border, you guys have no idea what kind of people are coming into this country?
Let me just say, first of all, this is why the president is having negotiations with the Senate, senators, Republicans and Democrats, right, for the past couple of weeks to deal with what's going on with the border security, right, as it relates to border security. This is why the president on day one put forward a comprehensive immigration plan that more than 3 years now, Congress didn't do anything about. But he's appreciative that we're having these conversations in the Senate. We've deployed additional troops and federal agents to the border, who have, by the way, returned more than 482,000 individuals since May. That's what we've been able to do. We've led the largest expansion of lawful pathways, and that we haven't seen in some time. The president continues to have diplomatic conversation with Mexico, who have actually taken actions to deal with the situation. There's more work to do. There's more work to do. We understand that. We have said that. You've heard that from the president on Friday. We understand that there's more work to do. We need more resources. We need more funding, which is why we're having these negotiations on the Hill. But Republicans in the Senate is working with us. Republicans in the House are trying to get in the way. So it's up to them. Are they going to help? Are they going to actually deal with an issue, or continue to move forward at a political stunt?
And as President Biden tries to make the national conversation more about reproductive rights, abortion, how many weeks into a pregnancy does he think abortion should still be legal?
So you've asked me this question before. I've been very clear. The president's been very clear. We want to see the protections in Roe. We want to see Roe become the law of the land. That's what the president wants to see. That's what the president believes in. And let me be very clear here. It's not some sort of shift that the president is making. Majority of Americans want to see their protections protected by the folks who are here in Washington, D.C., in Congress, by this president and the vice president. That's the president is standing with majority of Americans. We saw that in the 2023 midterm elections, and we saw that in 2022, not midterm election, but the 2023 election and 2022 midterm elections. They've been very clear. We need to stand for freedoms, for make sure women have the right to make their own decision, personal decisions on their body, on their health care. That's where majority of Americans are. guess what? Republican officials, they're not there. They're not with majority of Americans. So the president's going to continue to stand with majority of Americans on this.
Thank you. So, you guys talk a lot, including today, about how the border wouldn't be such a big deal if Congress would have just passed your immigration bill on day one. Who was in charge of Congress on day one?
So it's been 3 years. It's been three whole years. More than 3 years. More than 1,000 days. And look, this is a difficult issue, obviously. This is a difficult issue. And what we have said is that Congress has to act, right? Congress, Democrats, Republicans have to act. But in those 3 years, it is true that Republicans have gotten in the way. They just have, Peter. They have consistently used immigration, the immigration system, the broken system, as a political stunt. That's what they've done. They've gotten in the way in trying to get more Border Patrol agents. They've gotten in the way in actually trying to fix what's happening, the challenges at the border. They did.
So,
I mean, they
the
voted.
Democrats
They've
that were in
actually
charge for the first
voted.
2 years, no
It
responsibility.
has. I'm not saying that Democrats have not been in control the first 2 years. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying House Republicans have gotten in the way. They have. They have purposefully gotten in the way in trying to fix what's happening at the border.
And how is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you,
Why-
sir.
What is
We're
the
going
rabbit
to
hole?
go ahead.
He said
go
he
ahead.
talked to Mitterrand.
Go ahead.
in-
You saw the president in Vegas, in California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan. I'll just leave it there. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Why wasn't there a 2-2 today with the German chancellor?
Look, we always find different ways to engage with the press when we do these types of bilats. There are many things that come into consideration, and with this trip, there was no 2+2. You're going to see, obviously, there's going to be some of your colleagues going to be part of the pool spray in a couple of minutes, not too long from now, and so you'll have an opportunity to see the two of them. Look, every visit is different. And they're different for different reasons. It's not just us. We have conversations with other countries that the leader, obviously the leader of the team of the other country. This just happens to not have a 2+2, but that's not always the case.
And yesterday, when you made light of the president's verbal flubs, had you been briefed on the special counsel report or seen it at all?
Nope, not at all. And what do you mean when I made light of the president's verbal flubs?
Well, you made some jokes in response to questions about the president confusing world leaders with deceased world leaders. And
What I did was I tried to state very clearly that, and yes, I did it in a light way because it does happen to many people. And I actually talked about one of your colleagues that I do it to all the time. And so, look, I just want to be very clear. This is a president that is very much focused on the American people. He is very much focused on making sure what he was elected to do gets done. With the promises that he's made to communities across the country gets kept. So I just want to make sure that is made also very clear.
And finally, in response to the special counsel report, one of the president's Republican presidential rivals, Nikki Haley, has called for a mental competency test for the president. Is that something that the White House is actively considering as a way to try and put to rest some of these allegations about his memory lapses?
I mean, look, I'm not a medical doctor. So certainly I'm not going to stand here and make opine on tests or anything of that nature. What I can say is that, and I remember talking to the president's doctor last year when I was asked about a cognitive test when the president's physical came out, and he said to me, and I'm paraphrasing because this was over a year ago at this point, that because of the president's actions every day, what he deals with world leaders, the domestic issues that he has to deal with, he believes that shows, right? That shows that the president is very much active and understands understands what's going on, right? And didn't believe that a test like that was warranted because of just who he is as president of the United States and everything that he has to deal with. But again, I'm not a medical doctor. The president's going to continue to be obviously transparent when it comes to his physical. We were the last 2 years. We'll have one. He'll have one this year, and the time permits, obviously, or when the time comes, we'll certainly share that. Okay.
Thank you, Karine. Thanks so much. You talked a lot about how, and the president says this too, that people should watch him when there are questions about his age. And the issue seems to be that they are watching him in public events, in some press conferences, and are coming to this conclusion, many of them, that he's too old. So what I'm wondering is he behaving differently behind closed doors? Because we don't get to see that at all. And do you see, and when you interact with him privately, is there kind of a different sort of level of vigor that is perhaps not as visible when we're all seeing him publicly?
So let me just first say, and I was on the swing with him recently, right? He went to Wisconsin, he went to Michigan, he went to California, he went to Vegas, and he's going to go to Ohio later this week. And so he visited small businesses, and he met with people on the road, obviously, and spent hours with them. So folks have seen him, and you all have seen him yourselves as you cover this president. And so you see him interact, you see him engage. And even when he was in Vegas, he took some questions that you all had, and that and answer. He tends to answer them in a light way, a funny way, and is sharp with his answers to some of you about that. And so look, and he's also meeting with world leaders. He did that with the German chancellor. He's obviously going to do this today with Kim Abdullah. And I spoke already about my experience with him. And just to answer your question, I've spent countless hours with this president, whether in the Oval Office or on the road. And I have to say, he's sharp, he's engaged, he pushes us for information.
Like emails at like 2 o'clock in the morning, or is there any sort of
Look, I think
like a finer point on what it is exactly that you see that somehow isn't coming across to the rest of the American people?
Look, I think the fact that when he meets with his team, when he meets with staff, he is, as I said, incredibly engaged. As I said, very sharp, and ask us back and forth. We go back and forth on whatever information, whatever is maybe the news of the day that's on his mind, and it happens very often.
Yeah.
And so that's my experience with him. But you all see him on the road. I mean, he was, when we were in Vegas, he was asked about, he was asked a specific question about the former president. And he answered that in a fun, sharp, kind of way. And that's him. That is him. What you see there is him. And so, look, I think, and I do want to step back for a second, because I think what's so very important too is this president's record in the last 3 years and what he's been able to get done, and that matters. And so, yes, we're going to continue to be out there. The president's going to continue to do everything that he can to speak directly to the American people, and we believe that is what's important here. Getting that work done, continuing to move forward in an impressive record in the last 3 years, especially for any modern president, whether it's dealing with infrastructure, whether it's dealing with beating big pharma, whether it's getting the economy back on its feet. All of these things are important. Let's not forget what's going on outside of this country, what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East. This is something that the president has been able to do in a pretty effective way.
And then just to follow up quickly on Matt's question, when Super Bowl teams are invited to the White House, do they typically have a +1?
Actually, that's a good question. I can't answer that right now. But look, we are looking forward to having them here, the Chiefs, and it was a great win, and just like we do in every this is a White House tradition to have the winners of the Super Bowl here, and so we're looking forward to it. I haven't called.
Any updates on when the president's physical might be taking place?
So he will have a physical when we have information on that. So obviously, we will certainly share that with all of you. It will be transparent. There will be a comprehensive report, as we have done the last 2 years. Just don't have a timeline for you.
Do you plan on the press getting a heads up before the physical happens, or will we find out once it has taken place?
We're going to do it the way that we've done it the last 2 years. It's not going to be anything different. So the way that we've approached this the last 2 years will be the same way that we do this this year, this
And
third year.
does the White House think that the idea of the president taking a cognition test, a cognitive test, as a part of this physical is a legitimate idea, particularly just on the heels of the special counsel report, more polling, as my colleague Selena just mentioned, showing that many American people have concerns about that?
Look, I got this question last week as well, and I'm just going to say what Dr. O'Connor, it's kind of what he said to me about a year ago when the report came out last year, obviously on his physical, which is the president proves every day how he operates, how he thinks, right? But by dealing with world leaders, by making really difficult decisions on behalf of the American people, whether it's domestic, whether it's national security. And so he shows it every day on how he thinks, how he operates. And so that is how the Dr. O'Connor sees it, and that's how I'm going to leave it.
What do you think about the idea of taking that kind of a test?
I mean, look, and I talked about this last week too on I believe, on Friday. I have known this president since 2009. He is not just my boss, he's also a mentor to me. And I spent sometimes countless hours with him, whether it's in the Oval Office, whether it's on the road. And I believe, for me, you're asking me my personal opinion, he is sharp. He is on top of things. When we have meetings with him, with his staff, he's constantly pushing us, trying to get more information. And so that has been my experience with this president. Anything else outside of that, I just shared with you what Dr. O'Connor said to me, and so I'll just leave it there.
Did the president take a mental fitness or a cognitive test during his physical this morning?
So let me just say I did see Dr. O'Connor, and he stopped by my office earlier today after the president completed his physical this morning, as you all know. He was happy with how everything went, and as soon as he finishes completing the memo, it will be a robust, comprehensive memo. We will certainly share that with all of you, as we have done in the last 2 years. And look, you saw the president return to work. He took some of your questions not too long ago, and you saw he's going to continue to fight for the American people. In this particular instance, he was talking about fighting crime. So the president's going to continue that process. As it relates to, you were asking me about a cognitive test. As it relates to that, look, the president doesn't need a cognitive test. That is not my assessment. That is not my assessment. That is the assessment of the president's doctor. That is also the assessment of the neurologist, who has also made that assessment as well. And, and you've heard us say this, and I'll reiterate this, the president's doctor has said, if you look at what this president, the president who is also the commander-in-chief, he passes a cognitive test every day, as he moves from one topic to another topic, understanding the granular level of these topics. You saw him talk about fighting crime today. Tomorrow he's going to go to the border. Next week he's going to give a State of the Union address. And so we have to keep that in mind. This is a very rigorous job, and the president has been able to do this job every day for the past 3 years. And let's not forget, he is also leading a historic presidency, which is also important to note in everything that we've been able to do. He's been able to get done over the past 3 years.
But given that there's been so much scrutiny and you say there's no problem, he'd pass the test every day, why not just have his doctor administer the test and then case closed?
Because the doctor doesn't believe that he needs one, because including the neurologist doesn't believe he needs one. Look, I think folks need to understand that the president passes, again, a cognitive test every day. If you look at what a clinical cognitive test is actually, what it actually does, it is a 15-minute appointment that is administered by someone that most of the time people don't actually know. And the president has a team of doctors that is with him 24/7. And he is able to do the work every day that is rigorous, that is more rigorous than it would be for any 15-minute clinical appointment. And you think about the job growth, you think about the record small business action, you think about the bloom in that particular space of 16 million more small businesses have been created. You think about delivering historic investment. That has been done by a president who has to deal with these issues every day, again, on a granular level. And so His doctor, including the neurologist, do not believe that he needs one. That is their assessment. Go ahead, Jeff.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not.
Given the fact that it's more than a bad night when his political future is threatened, would he be willing to provide more medical information? Would he be willing to have Dr. O'Connor provide more to answer these questions?
Look, Kelly-O, certainly understand the question, appreciate the question, but what we have provided has been very transparent.
But it's
Has
not
been-
recent.
has
and
been-
the country watch.
But February was this year. It wasn't too long ago. It was indeed this year, and we provided transparent report, a thorough
There were
report.
many Americans who were concerned about his capacity. Was he okay? What happened? And we've now gone several days where he has only done teleprompter comments. He has not taken questions. I know you've announced a press conference. We
Yeah.
appreciate that. An interview. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
But there is a period of time here where the public is trying to understand what happened. And the president could help to answer that by engaging with us in an unscripted way right now.
So let me just say a couple of things. There's a couple of things that you said that I do want to address. Number one, less than an hour after the debate, he went and he engaged directly with the American people, right? He went to a watch party. He was in a room with hundreds of supporters who watched the debate. And when he walked in, they cheered him on. And he did a photo line with them for some time. Some of your colleagues had an opportunity to speak to these supporters. He did that. And that was something that he was able to do right after. And then we stopped at a Waffle House, as some of you all know, and spoke to a packed restaurant. So he spent some time there. Then the next day, he went to North Carolina, spoke in front of hundreds of supporters there who said, "We support you, Joe. We love you, Joe." And so he was able to do that. In those 2.5 days or so after the debate, he went to 4 states and engaged with supporters, engaged with American people, everyday people, heard directly from them. And let's not forget, when we landed in North Carolina, I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning, he engaged with supporters there as well. So the president has been out there. He's been listening to supporters. It's something that he loves to do, not just supporters, but American people out there, everyday people who appreciate what he does, who wants to hear more from him, as you just stated, and got that opportunity to do just that. I think it matters that he's going to do an interview on Friday. I think it matters that he's going to go to Wisconsin and do that, right? Engage with everyday people. We're going to continue to do that. Nothing has changed in that regard. We're going to continue to be out there. He's going to be in Pennsylvania as well this weekend, as I just stated.
And one more.
Go for it.
Thanks, Karine. So there are growing calls from Democrats, including members of Congress, for the president to step aside for the 2024 election because he's not capable of serving another 4 years. What is his response to this?
So let me just step back for a minute and I guess deal with the questions that have come in about the debate. And honestly, this is something that the president has addressed himself multiple times since this past Thursday. And first of all, I want to say we understand the concerns. We get it. The president did not have a great night, as you all know, and many of you reached out during the debate. The president had a cold. He had a hoarse voice. You all heard it. That's why you reached out. But I will say this, and the president said this over the past couple of days, certainly right after the debate. He knows how to do the job. And he knows how to do the job, not because he says it, because his record proves it. Because for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, the president's record has been unprecedented, delivering for the American people. Another thing that he said that I would add is he knows right from wrong. He knows how to tell the truth. And again, he knows how to deliver for the American people. Joe Biden is a person, take away his title. He is someone who has dealt with tragedy. He is someone who has confronted that head on. He is someone who knows how to get back up once you've been knocked down. That is something that he understands very, very well. And I think, and we believe, that's something that many of Americans across the country understand as well. And he knows how to come back. He knows how to come back. And so the president's going to continue to focus on what he's been doing the past 3.5 years. He's going to continue to focus on the American people. And, you know, to your question, just to add a little bit more to your question, look, you heard from Speaker Pelosi, you heard from Representative Clyburn, and let me just paraphrase a little bit of what they said. Speaker Pelosi, who's very close to the president, said it is not about performance in terms of a debate, it's about performance in a presidency. And this is a president, you've heard me say this, we've talked about this, he's been able to give us an economic recovery, the strongest economic recovery in modern history. Let's not forget, during the midterms of 2022, many people, many of you all, some of you in this room, said that it was going to be a red wave, and that didn't happen. He defeated Big Pharma. We have seen historic low in crime, in more than down to 50-year low. And then you had Representative Clyburn, who said the president has done a great job leading for the last 3.5 years. The best predictor of future behavior is past performance. This is from Clyburn. And when you look at the record of President Biden versus former President Trump, you see President Biden, who has delivered the strongest recovery in modern history, versus the previous administration, whose plans hurts the middle class. And President Biden, who is committed to protecting our fundamental freedoms, versus the former president, the previous administration, doing everything that they could, and they did, to overturn Roe v. Wade, and they are responsible for that. And that's coming from two people who are not just leaders in Congress, but also close to the president. Andrew?
Thank you, Karine. Two questions.
Sure.
You have repeatedly referred to the president's outing after the debate at the watch party, his remarks the next day in North Carolina, his appearances at fundraisers, his appearances this morning at the DC Emergency Operations Center. All those appearances were scripted events where he spoke
Not all.
from a most spoke from a teleprompter.
I know, but you said all, but not all.
Okay, well,
Let's just
if you're
be-
correcting
let's
me,
be-
they're most. They're scripted, spoken from a teleprompter. How are Americans supposed to get the sense that the president is fully engaged and capable and thinking off the cuff when he's reading from prepared remarks so often? And why can't he just come down here? The briefing room's 30 seconds away.
Yeah.
Why can't he come down here and assure us and the American people
Yeah.
that he's okay? And I have a follow-up.
Okay. First of all, it wasn't all. It was, you know, when he was speaking in front of the audience, but it wasn't all. When you think about the tarmac, when you think about engaging at the Waffle House, when you think about engaging at the watch party and doing a very long rope line, and when he was at the tarmac, it was in the middle of the night, literally 2:00 at night. We all wanted to go to bed, but the president was certainly very focused and zeroed in on the American people who were out there, cheering him on and wanting to see him and take selfies and get a hug from this president. That's what you saw. And I don't know if you missed this, but I also shared that he has done more than 40 interviews this year alone, and we're going to continue that. He's going to do an interview with ABC, George Stephanopoulos, this week. Those were unscripted. He's done more than 500 gaggles. Those are unscripted, and we want to continue to do that. We do. We want to continue to do that. There's going to be a press conference next week, a NATO big boy press conference, as Justin has reminded us, next week. And so that's going to be important as well.
And I have a follow-up. And
Sure.
One of my colleagues behind me shouted a similar question to what I'm going to be asking you. But I think
I don't remember the question.
given what happened on Thursday, given the reporting in the New York Times and other outlets about the president's more frequent lapses, losing his train of thought, all of us saw what happened on Thursday, where he simply could not form coherent answers to many or some, if you will, of the questions, and appeared to lapse into nonsensical answers at the end. We beat Medicare, for instance. I'm going to ask something delicate, and you may not like it. The president may not like to hear it if he's watching, but I think the American people need to get a yes or no answer on this. Does President Biden, at 81 years old, have Alzheimer's, any form of dementia, or degenerative illness that would cause these sorts of lapses? And it's a yes or no question. And if you don't know, why don't you, as one of his senior staff members, know the
I
yes
have
or
an
no
answer for you. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
It's a no. And I hope you're asking the other guy the same exact question. Okay, go ahead, go ahead. He can.
The question about what gives you confidence about 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 5
We
years?
believe that this is a president that is able to continue to deliver and build on the unprecedented success that he's been able to do. That's what we believe. We believe, and he believes it. And he is determined and committed to doing that. And Michael, and I think the thing too that's important is we have been able to do things that most modern presidents haven't been able to do, and that matters as well. I know you guys are trying to get me to look into the future, but what I can say to you is this is a president that is committed to doing that.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
anybody doubts that commitment.
Yeah.
I think the question is, given the performance, and I apologize.
No, Michael's like, no, you take it.
I mean, I just think the question, it's about, it's the way we look at our elderly parents and grandparents. It's, you maybe visit them once a year and you see troubling signs because you don't live in the same city perhaps, and the first question that you go to is, I wonder if this is like a one-time thing, or if it's something that has been happening for a longer time that we need to deal with. And the second question is,
You're going
where are they going to be
multiple
in
times
well,
here.
where are they going to be in a year? Where are they going to be in 2 years?
Yeah.
Do we need to put them in a home? All of the questions that go through that, and this is sort of the American people's version of that.
I hear, and I hear you, and that's what I'm saying. Look, this is why the president goes through, medical examinations, right? And we release those medical examinations, right? We've done that the past couple of years. We're going to continue to do that. This is why we're going to go out there and continue to be out there and do interviews and talk to the American people. And at the end of the day, I got to be careful, right? Because we are in a campaign season. But the American people will see for themselves, right? And I just want to be super, super careful. But look, this is a president that has worked incredibly hard for the American people. And not just as president, as vice president, as a senator. And he is committed. And we cannot take away from the fact of his 3.5 years of leadership, what that has been able to do, what he's been able to get done. And that doesn't come from, that doesn't come easily. And he did it in historic fashion. He did. And the data proves that. And so, look, he's committed to continuing to make that progress, continue to work, whether it's climate change, whether it's the economy, whether it's healthcare. That is what he is committed to doing. And, look, he had a bad night. He did. And we are admitting that, owning up to that. You heard the president speak to that, and I think that's important for the American people to hear from us and from him as well. I know I have to go. I'll be back tomorrow, but go ahead.
The White House released a 6-page summary back in February. I don't think that was a full accounting necessarily. And Dr. O'Connor in that memo described the president as, quote, a healthy, active, robust 81-year-old male who remains fit to successfully execute the duties of the presidency. I think that is clearly not what the majority of Americans are seeing. And we have a new poll from CBS News that says 72% of registered voters say the president does not have the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. So are you saying that the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word?
So a couple of things, and I want to say the president is feeling better, and you saw him last night, you saw him today, but he does indeed still have a cold. Look, I want to be very sensitive here, and I think it is important to be sensitive here. We understand how the American people are feeling. We get it. We do. And I do not want to take away from that. I'm not going to speak. I know that there was, you all did a poll, CNN did a poll. I'm not going to speak to every poll. I'm just not going to do that. And also, I'm constraints in doing that as we're heading into an election in November, as you know. What I will say is majority of Americans also support the work that the president has doing in a sense of his agenda and what he stands for, what he's been fighting for, whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's an economy that works for all. And that is something that the president is going to continue to do. And this is why we have said, and I have said this multiple times from here, is that's why the president acknowledges. We get it. We get what Americans are feeling. That's why he's acknowledging. He's not a young man. That's why he's acknowledging. He's a little slower than he used to be in walking and not as smooth as speaking. We get that. But we also want to make sure that we point to the successes that he's had, his record, and we want to continue to build on his unprecedented record. And I'm not going to discount what the American people see or feel. What I can say is what we know from our side of things. We could speak to his record, and we could speak to what the president has been able to acknowledge. And I think that's important too. And that's basically acknowledging what Americans are seeing and feeling.
If you get it, why not release more about his medical, his physical and mental health? Why not?
What we have released has been very comprehensive. It has been. It has been transparent. And if you compare it, right, it has. We have put that out there. And, you know, and we'll continue to do so, put that information out there. You know, and MJ, I want to be very clear. I get the question that you're asking me. But this is also a president who has had a historic administration. He has, in delivering on legislation, key policies. That is because with age comes wisdom and comes experience. And I think that matters as well.
Did Dr. O'Connor watch the debate?
I believe Dr. O'Connor traveled with us to the debate. So
Did he have any concerns after seeing the
no,
president's
not at
debate
all.
performance?
Not
I
at
have
all.
one more question.
No.
Thanks, Karine. I just wanted to ask, how is the president's health today? Does he still have his cold or is he feeling better? And then to clarify on the medical exam, because you said he hasn't had one since his last physical, he was on the way to the debate, the doctor was with him, he had a cold, he's 81, does he not get checked out by the doctor? I'm just
Well, I
curious
can
how
tell
that
you
works.
he did not get checked out by the doctor. It's a cold, guys, it's a cold. And I know that it affects everybody differently. We have all had colds. And so, no, he was not checked by the doctor. What was your other question?
How is his health today? Does he still have the
Well,
cold?
I saw him today. My team and I saw him today. He looked great. And he was with the vice president. They both look great. I know I was asked yesterday if he still had a cold. I think if he still has a lingering cold. But he is ready to go. He's ready to go. I kind of have to wrap it up. Go ahead.
Great. Sources have told ABC that the president recognizes how difficult his political predicament is. So how has his mood been as of late? Has he been down? Is he frustrated?
I mentioned, I think, multiple times at this point that I got to see him, my team and I got to see him and the vice president. He's great. He's like in a great mood, ready to get things going. He's going to do the Medal of Honor later today. He's going to meet with Democratic governors, and that's kind of what you want to see, right, from your leader.
Frustrations with you all
What I can say is that he wants to move forward. That's what he wants to do. He wants to move forward. Acknowledge, right? Acknowledge what happened. Be very clear-eyed about it, and very forthcoming and honest about what you all saw. But he also knows that he's the president of the United States. He has to continue to work and deliver on behalf of the American people. That's what he has to continue to do, and that's how he's going to move forward. All right, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
To the governor's meeting, the president made a joke that it was something with his brain in that meeting, and very respectfully, is now the time for the president to be making those kinds of jokes when the country is watching him for his cognitive abilities?
He made a lighthearted joke, to your point, right? I'm glad you brought that question to me in that way, because that's exactly what it was. Many people who were in the meeting even stated it. They're publicly said that he was joking, and added, all kidding aside, right after. Look, you've heard the president bring some humor in the past. That is just who he is. And look, you're right. It is a serious moment. It is. There's a lot at stake. The president takes that very seriously. And I think that's why he's worked so hard over the last 3.5 years to get things done for the American people. You're right. Democracy's at stake. Freedoms is at stake. And the president's going to continue to work on those very things.
Does he feel the weight of everyone looking at him for the words, the cognitive abilities? Like, does he know? I mean, I know he likes to joke, but it's a tough moment.
Every president of the United States feels the weight of the job, period. Every president, because they're not just president, obviously they're commander-in-chief. They feel the weight of the job, and he understands that he has to deliver and will continue to deliver every day.
Does he understand
understand like the slip ups and the sort of mistakes that he makes. The scrutiny is it's intense. I mean, is he aware? I don't know. Is he aware of this?
He said in the question that Annie asked me, right? He understands. He understands that. He said it himself. Don't speak as smoothly as I do. I'm not as a good debater as he used to be. I mean, he understands what people sees. He talked very frankly and very honestly about the debate and what people saw. He spoke to it.
That acknowledgement has only come after the debate. This is not something he has been forthright about ahead of the debate. Going into the debate, he did not say, I'm not as good a debater as I used to be. That's an acknowledgement that's only coming once it's evidently clear.
Just a couple things. After the debate, the day after, he spoke to his debate performance. So I just want to be really clear about that. He has spoken to his age. He has. I would just run the tape, look back. He has spoken about it and has acknowledged what people see and what Americans feel. He has acknowledged that. So that is very, very much true. He had a bad night. And he's acknowledged and taken ownership of that. If you heard the 2 radio interviews, he talked about that almost extensively in some ways, right? And discussed that and talked about that. And so, anyway, what I don't think you've asked the question.
No, yeah. Is the president expected to hold more meetings either on the phone or in person with Democratic leaders like we saw with these governors and as we saw with Leader Jeffries?
So look, the president is looking forward to having more discussions with elected officials, with supporters as we move forward. Obviously, the American people continue to engage. That's something that he's going to continue to do, and that's something he always looks forward to. Certainly, I don't have anything to read out or call out on his calendar, but that is something that the president continues to do, will do, and looks forward to hearing directly, obviously engaging with Americans, and he'll do that.
It seems like it's the 75th anniversary, it's here in DC, obviously, but what does the success look like for Biden, given everything that is going on in kind of the debate aftermath? Kind of, what is he measuring?
So I'll say this, and I've said this many times before as it relates to foreign leaders. And look, I'll say that the foreign leaders have had an opportunity to see what the president has been able to do in the last 3.5 years. They've seen that certainly up close and personal the last 3 years, and they know that they are dealing with a president who has been effective and has been able to get things done. I just talked about NATO and the president's leadership and how we've been able to strengthen NATO, make sure that we invigorated the NATO alliance, and that we've been able to see in the last 3.5 years. So the president wants to continue to strengthen that partnership and strengthen those alliances. Obviously, it's not going to just be NATO allies here. We're going to see others. For example, Japan will be here on Thursdays, and other heads of states. I believe there's going to be 38 heads of states that will be here, and so we want to continue to strengthen those relationships, and that's what the president wants to see. It is an important year, the 75th anniversary, and I think all of the work that the president has been able to do will be on full display.
Just one last question: if the president's health were to decline rapidly next week, just kind of out of the blue, have you had any conversations with him, or has he made any comments on if
absolutely
he will
not.
step aside?
That's a hypothetical. No.
The White House has obviously fielded a lot of questions in recent days about the president's health, whether the White House has been forthcoming or not about that issue. And I just wondered, have the last 12 days made you reconsider any specific statements that you might have made in recent months on that issue?
I appreciate the question. I really do, and the opportunity. I think there has been moments here when I have said, and especially in the gaggle, I think, and actually yesterday, if I have, said, misled in something that I've said or haven't had the full information, I actually own up to that. And I actually say, I will do my best to get you the information. Hence the letter for Dr. O'Connor, right? And so I will, I've always said, I've always been committed to doing the best I can to give you the information that we have. That is a commitment from the team. It has been an unprecedented time. I think you guys could admit that, right? It is an unprecedented time. And so we are meeting the moment, a new moment that has never really existed before. And so we want to make sure that we get you all the information that we have. And when we don't have it, We do try our best to provide that information. And so that is something that I'm going to continue to do. And I've always said it is an honor and a privilege to be standing in front of you every day, exercising in the freedom of the press. This is a briefing that is watched around the world because we lead in democracy, right? We lead in the freedom of the press and what that looks like. Honor and privilege, and I will continue to do my best to do just that.
And we certainly understand, you know, you speak on behalf of the president and you defend him, his actions, his positions, his policy positions included. Could I just ask you about one example, just going back, that comes to mind? September.
In the past, you're talking about the last 12 days?
I'm talking about
recent
months.
No, well, you just said recently. It's been, you know, we've been going back and forth. And so in the last, 12 days or so, that's how, I believe that's how you asked me the question.
I was talking generally.
Okay.
But if I could just ask you about one example.
I mean, look, if you're going to ask me about something from months ago, it probably would be fair for me to, I probably won't be able to answer that right away, whatever it is that you're going to say to me.
Come back to us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. But it's also to say, hey, from September of whenever year, right? That is something that I probably should give a little space to kind of see exactly what you're speaking of.
Okay, and that's fine if that ends up being
I just want to make
your
sure that
response.
we
Sure.
kind of give some context here.
Yeah. And you'll remember this. This was an event where the president called out Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, looked for her in the room even though she had recently died. You told multiple reporters at the time, and this was asked in multiple different ways.
She was top of mind.
Right.
Yep.
It was because she was top of mind for the president. I mean, would you, on that example, would you offer a different explanation?
I would not, because honestly, I spoke to the president right before coming out that day, and that is what the president told me. It's not something that came from me, that is something that came from the president.
So he was saying even as he was looking for her in the moment, it wasn't a misspeak?
She was top of mind.
Okay.
That is coming, as you just said in your question, I speak for the president, I speak on behalf of him. That was coming from him, and I was delivering directly from the president what he was thinking at the time.
Great. A very different kind of example, and this is more recent.
Oh, sure.
When the president was in Italy for the G7, and you remember he skipped one of the leaders' dinner, which was a major event for the summit. And I remember you were asked about it by reporters, and you said, we shouldn't read too much into the fact that he's skipping one dinner. I mean, would the explanation actually have been that he was tired and that he needed to skip something that was happening so late in the evening?
And my answer stays the same. I wouldn't read too much into it. It's not the first time that he has. He has a really busy schedule, and there's a lot going on. As you know, when the president is abroad, he has continued to do domestic stuff as well as meeting with global leaders. And so I truly would not read too much into it, and I will leave it there.
Okay, I have a very final question on the annual
Sure.
letter from Dr. O'Connor. He said that the president continues to be fit for duty and fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations. Just because it's been a couple of months, do you know if that statement is still accurate?
It's still accurate.
So no exemptions, no accommodations?
No exemptions, no accommodations.
Thank
It's
you.
accurate. Thank you. I know we had our chat yesterday.
Yes, thank you,
So go
Karine.
ahead.
Does President Biden commit to serving a full second term if reelected?
Yes.
Thank you. We know the president says that his health is fine, but it's just his brain, and that he's sharpest before.
He was joking, by the way. I just want to make sure that that's out there. And he was making a lighthearted joke as he was speaking off. He's speaking off the cuff, and he was making a joke. You know the president; he likes to joke a lot. He's the same guy who says, "I know I look 40," right? So he likes to make jokes. It is a joke. I think people laugh when he says it.
Well, he
So
also
it is a
said
joke.
he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
So, Kevin McCarthy just said that when he was the speaker, many times when we had meetings in the Oval Office, Jill was there as well. When the First Lady's in these meetings, is she making decisions or is she just
No.
advising the President?
No, the president is the president of the United States. He makes decisions.
Okay. Another family member. President Biden has told me before, he and his son don't have any business dealings together. So what is Hunter Biden doing in White House meetings?
Are you talking about the meeting where they came together from Camp David and the two of them walked to the president's meeting and he was there?
There's a report that aides were struck by his presence during their discussions.
Look, I'm certainly not going to get into private conversations that occur. What I can say is, and I spoke to this before, is that when they came back from Camp David, the president spent a couple days at Camp David with his family. He is very close to his family, as you know. It was the week of 4th of July, which is why his family members were here last week. They walked together, and they walked together into the meeting.
Can you say if Hunter Biden has access to classified information?
No.
Finally, Karine, this morning House Speaker Mike Johnson said, as he has before, that Democrats have been covering up the president's mental acuity for years. How do you respond to that, and has the White House misled Americans?
So I will say this, Americans out there, folks who are watching, who are not normally in the day-to-day of what's happening in this world, there is a comprehensive full comprehensive medical report on the website, whitehouse.gov. I would encourage them to take a look, Read that report, and they can also read for themselves what his specialist, a group of specialists coming out of the medical unit decided on, what they examined, what they saw, what they reported on. I think that matters as well. It is a group of them that come together when it comes to doing their physical. It is extensive physical. And so there is something there for them. It's transparent, it's out there, it's for them to read, it's for the American, not just for you, for the American people to take a look. And I think that's important to note as well, and that's what I would share with them. Okay, and I'll come to you, Ed, in a second.
And are you guys just not, since February, testing President Biden for Parkinson's or for dementia? Because if he gets a bad result, it's all over that day.
Again, as I've said many times before, the president has had a fulsome, comprehensive, what we shared with you was comprehensive, but he's had a full physical. We've shown the results of those physicals this past 3 years. We showed it just 4 months ago. And it is in line with what we have done, similar to President Obama, similar to George W. Bush. We are committed to continue to be transparent. We are committed to continue to show the results of those physicals. And look, it's the president's medical team that makes the decision. We are not, with all due respect, you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor. It is the president's medical unit that makes a decision on what the president needs.
Not a doctor, just play one on TV. But I know
that's
that
scary.
that is scary. But I know that, especially as adults get into their 80s, health conditions can pop up more than just once a year when he's getting his physical. I think if my wife saw me on TV misspeaking or saying the wrong thing or seeing a change in my appearance, she would probably say, let's go to a doctor just to make sure that you are okay, you have a family, you have an important job. Why doesn't anybody in the president's family urge him just to go to get checked out to say the coast is clear?
Okay, so just to step back just a little bit, because I think you weren't in the briefing room last week. I don't want to go backwards, but just to share a little bit about that night. The president said it was a bad night. He talked about it. He had a cold, right? He talked about his schedule, right, being abroad. And so we've spoke about what that night was like for him. And we understand what the American people saw, what you all saw. We've spoken to that. And I also would say, and I think you know this, Peter, you've covered a couple of administrations at this point, that the president, every president, has a White House medical unit that is with him 24/7, that is available to him 24/7. That is unlike any other American, right? That is not the norm. That is uncommon. Just down on the other side of the colonnade is where the medical unit is. And I did share that the president checks in while he's exercising with his doctor a couple times a week. And so he has that. He has something that majority of Americans, all Americans I would probably argue, don't have, which is a full medical unit that is with him at all times. And he gets a full physical, annual physical that we share with all of you. And that is very different than an everyday American who sometimes they're lucky if they can go get a physical. They have to get into a car. They have to take public transportation. The president has, again, a medical unit that's with him here at the White House and travels with him.
So I guess the question is just, you're saying this is not a situation where you would rather just not know if there is an issue with the president, because if he does get a bad result, it is all over. He has to leave office right away, can't run for re-election.
First of all, it's a hypothetical, right? That you're giving me a hypothetical. But I will also say, just to clear this up, the White House medical unit, his doctor, they don't believe that he needs anything more than what we have been able to provide, a full, detailed, very comprehensive physical that he had 4 months ago. It is their decision to make. It's not yours, it's not mine, it's the White House medical unit.
It would seem that people in this White House knew that President Biden was slipping, and it was hidden from the American people. So who ordered White House officials to cover up a declining president?
I know that that is a narrative that you love, and
Wait,
no, wait,
10 days.
hold on.
He did a press conference
Hold
at
on.
NATO.
Hold
I'm
on.
in it. There's all these things that I
Hold
need
on.
to finish, and then 10 days later, I'm dropping out.
Okay, okay, you're asking me like multiple questions here. Let me, wait. First of all, there's been no cover-up. Want to be very clear about that. I know that's the narrative that you all want. Wait, no, you can't.
Well,
Okay.
I've been with President Biden for 5 years.
Are you going to let me answer the question?
Would you at least admit that the debate was not just a bad night?
Wait, can I answer the question?
Yes.
All right, are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. To your first question, it is not a cover-up. I know that is the narrative that you all want. It is not. I'm going to say this again, and you're going to hear directly from the president. I hope you listen tonight. I think it's going to be incredibly powerful and important. The Oval Office, presidents, as you know, when they make speeches from the Oval Office, it's because there are important moments that they want to directly make sure that the American people hear from them, and it's obviously going to be done in prime time. I would listen to the president. And then what I will say is that it is not easy making a decision that the president made on Sunday. It is just not. It is not. And as you all reported, it is historic. It is unusual. This is not the norm. And making a decision like that for someone who has been in public service for 54 years, U.S. Senator for 36, President to Vice President to President Obama for 8, and now a first term as president himself. These are not easy decisions to make. They're just not. And so the fact that he was able to make that decision in a selfless way, that's admirable.
And can you say whether or not you'd be willing to have the president's doctor come to the podium, particularly given that the president does intend to serve out his term, and there have been a number of questions about, his fitness for office. Some of those questions could be settled if perhaps there's if his doctor would come to the podium, or if more medical records could be released.
You've heard from the president's doctor, I believe, every day that he had COVID. He gave his assessment of what was going on, what was happening. There was a memo that was sent out to all of you. Obviously, the memo was given to me, and we shared it publicly. I don't have anything else. And you've heard me say this many times. There was an extensive medical evaluation that was done, physical that was done in February. You all have that. I just don't have anything else to share from here. All right, thanks everybody. I'll be back tomorrow.
Thanks,